Anyways, keep going. You were saying that it had something to do with dance.
Yeah, so dance. I started doing this thing with dance just actually this semester, and I went full on to introduce the first Mesoamerican reconstructed dance at Franklin and Marshall College after 470 something years of existence. I was the first one to introduce a Mesoamerican dance to that college.
Yeah.
Hence, that college was open when the Constitution was written. So,
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
yeah, 1787 was its funded year, and
It is situated in Pennsylvania, right? You go to
Correct.
Franklin Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
that's right. Yes. So I'm out of state, but I am still a Boyle Heights hood. So I still come back for my breaks and stuff, and it's amazing to come back home and to have that opportunity and have scholarships that can fund you.
Now this might actually mess up the audio quality for a little bit, but okay. Anyways, you were going.
Yeah.
So
So so it's nice to come back home and have that feeling of knowing where you're from and reminding yourself with more purpose every time you go back to college.
That's true. That's something I actually noticed. Like
Yeah.
when I come back here, I kind of get that sense of purpose, that sense of wanting to succeed in college.
I agree fully because it's a reminder, but more than just a reminder, sometimes it becomes, to me, it's my influence, it's my empowerment. My community is my empowerment because it's the voice that we have, right, that matters in the classroom. And then whatever happens in the classroom is really
Hold on. I think I'm just gonna cut this part out.
yeah, no problem.
This
I think they
we
might
live
be
in a city, so it is gonna get pretty noisy.
Yeah.
I want to go back to. Okay, but before I go do that, can you please finish what you were saying before we interrupted?
So
you come back with a sense of purpose.
yeah, with a sense of purpose and very influenced by my community and the idea of having a voice in a classroom that's predominantly white and privileged, and always being the other.
Okay. Before we go into that conversation, I want to go a little bit more into what you were talking about, that the Mesoamerican dances that you introduced to Franklin Marshall.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
So I digged deep into where I was from. And that had a lot of meaning, right? So where you're from becomes a question that we tend to be asked, what's your background, or what's this, what's your race, what's your ethnicity? And at the end of the fucking day, I don't know what the fuck I am, right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of us don't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So
hard to
a
find
lot of
that,
us don't, right? However, there is sometimes this instinct, right, that I was talking to you about earlier. This instinct that connects us as individuals to certain things without knowing, and that was the dance aspect, right?
Yeah.
I liked being barefoot. I like doing this. I like dancing to natural sounds like thunder or like shit like that. That's so abnormal and abstracted, but yet it has a very strict connection to nature. So then I started getting more involved and in tuned with that, and I was like, there's a lot behind that. And so I started doing research on like what tribes or what dancers in the past would actually dance to thunder or dance to the rain or dance this to the fire to.
And this whole thing was just entirely intuitive.
Yeah, it was very intuitive.
It just came to you like, oh, I love dancing to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then the drums, right? And of course, the drums were like the idea of the heartbeat, because
Right.
that's what a drum is. It's almost a heartbeat. That's what it
Yes.
represents. So I started becoming more involved with that, and I started doing research on Mesoamerican traditional dances. And that's where I fell into it, and I was like, you know what, this is some shit I want to get into.
Right.
It's very spiritual, and a lot of my existence has been like this huge like debate of like what spirituality is to me, and where my faith comes from, and etc. This is a conversation almost of identity, right? It's like a crisis that we're introduced to a religion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we want in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So as we grow into becoming adults, we learn about ourselves. And that's where I started learning about like how I didn't have this strict, or not as strict, but I didn't have that intimate relationship with the Catholic religion.
Yeah.
I knew that a lot of shit has happened in the past with the Catholic religion that I did not agree with. So not to blame God for that, right?
Yeah.
But that is honestly what introduced me to like this whole Mesoamerican dance thing, because a lot of the genocides that were created and the atrocities that happened
During our imperialism.
yeah, imperialism, colonialism, and all of these atrocities that happened that are not written in history because they were not the winners of the war, right?
Yeah.
So my responsibility now through dance is to reconstruct these movements to tell a story that was never told.
Right.
So that's what I find dance to be, that segue into introducing a different way of creating a message that was hidden and destroyed and, you know, burned. So that's my voice in dance currently. And that's why I really wanted to start doing this more research and more in depth, even then identity, spirituality, a sense of meditation. Mm-hmm. Every time I started my rehearsals with my dancers, we always started laying down on the floor, and they just became in tune with their heart pulse. And as soon as they started becoming in tune with their heart pulse, they started responding to the djembe, which is a drum, and it's a West African drum. Yeah. And once they started to become more in tune with the drums, right, then that's where they would rise up from the floor and start dancing. Right. So, and they didn't necessarily have to be Mesoamerican or Mexican descent. The dancers were from all over the world, actually.
That's really strange.
The dancers were from all over the world. We had Chinese dancers, Japanese dancers.
But couldn't you attribute that to like just the human instinct to want to dance or express yourself?
And that is my point, that it goes beyond just Mesoamerica.
Wow.
That there is this huge connection with a lot of indigenous tribes before imperialism that was never told.
But do you think it reaches far beyond that? Like the fact that as human beings we like to express ourselves through movement, or
we don't all like to do that.
You don't think so?
Nope.
What groups would you say don't like to do that? Don't like to dance?
The ones that have normalized a lot of society. The ones that have created an expectation of what is normal versus abnormal. The ones that have said, you know, you can't have your kid screaming in the metro because he's going to go wild, or, you know, things like that. Those people that can't even listen to other humans talk. Those are the people that don't dance. Those are the people that don't embrace and express through movements, because if in the first place they can't tolerate another human's existence, then they won't be able to even come into touch with themselves.
But do you think that's intuitive, or do you think that's something that's taught? Because I feel that
dance is intuitive.
Yeah.
Yes, dance is intuitive. However, a lot of people do grow up dancing, and the most, in terms of my knowledge of and exposure to dance, a lot of the dancers that were in the dance department at FNM actually come from ballet conservatives. And these ballet conservatives, you know, it's because that's how they were almost like raised into dance. Right. On the other hand, I never stepped foot on a studio floor in my whole life, and I go to FNM and I take one class. Now my first time in a professional studio, and there I am creating shit, you know, and it comes out of the nowhere. It literally comes out of the nowhere, and that is the intuition that we're talking about. However, before I even stepped in the studio, I knew that there was this connection with dance, because in high school, you seen me dance to like the Mexican regional music, the banda and stuff. I remember those days, yeah. I was dancing to all of that stuff because my body responded the way it did. No one taught me. I just danced. Exactly. I embraced that aspect of the culture, but it is that culture. And then this becomes a clash of civilizations, right? Where we have cultures that accept the embracing aspect through movements of culture, and there's cultures that simply don't even accept that. That see it as, there's some people that see dance as something that only prostitutes do, that only, like table dancers do. So it's like it becomes this whole other conversation of what dance is, a whole crisis of identity. But
okay, but before we go on, can you do me a favor and please turn on that TV over there?